A prequel is a literary, dramatic, or filmic work whose story precedes that of a previous work.
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity, where we talk about drinking culture, pop culture, and anything else that comes up. Joining me as always is Brandon.
Hello, my people.
Kale. And Jim.
Hello, everybody.
Today, we are not talking sequels, as some in the group thought up until very recently. We are actually talking about prequels. This sometimes happens when you discuss the episode you're going to do the next week after everybody has been drinking for several hours. So we are talking prequels, and we've all got our lists. But before we talk about our lists, let's talk about what's in our glasses, or what's in our squirt bottles. Brandon, what happens to be in your squirt bottle / glass?
The squirt bottle is just apple cider vinegar, but the glass is pure Cabernet Sauvignon.
We got a classy son of a bitch in the room tonight, having his cab. Kale, what are you having?
I'm having a bottle of Ohishi whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Made with rice from Japan. Mike knows all this because he gave me the bottle. But for the viewers, I do watch a lot of culinary shows and documentaries and things like that. And I know that in Japan, they take the rice very seriously. They approach it very seriously. So I imagine whatever went into this product is probably as high quality as you're going to find.
It's if you ever find that one somewhere, it is very different from any other whiskey you've ever had. It's definitely worth a shot. Jim, what are you having?
Worth a shot. I like what you did there.
Boom. Didn't even mean it. But I'll take
I'm
it.
having a margarita made with lime juice and some sparkling lemon water, because that's what I had, and it's all right.
Fair
It's
enough.
definitely higher alcohol content than typical margarita that I would make.
In my mind, when 3 roses is not enough and 4 roses simply, or when 5 roses won't do, you go with 4 roses. So I'm having a 4 roses single barrel, which is very nice single barrel whiskey. And yeah, it's got great fruit notes on it. But that being said, so this week we're going to talk about prequels. Now we've all kind of got our own criteria, what we sort of called prequels. There's a big Wikipedia list that I went through to kind of look at some of them, but we're all going to kind of use our own criteria. There's nothing that's going to be, banned or anything like that. But Brandon, why don't you get us started off? What is your number 5 best prequel? And by the way, real quick, a prequel, we're just considered a prequel is something that came before, that is made later, but comes before a movie that came out before it, basically.
Yes. Well, I honestly don't know that this has been made a movie. It's been filmed as a play, but I say Wicked. I really enjoyed the book when it came out, and from what I have seen of the play, I liked it too. So I thought it was well written and an interesting take from what ends up being a bad guy in The Wizard of Oz. Well, kind of the bad guy, the Wicked Witch. I don't know. I thought it was really good.
It has not been made into a film. However, there is another one that was, which is Oz the Great and Powerful, which I saw on the list,
but I never saw that one. So
I did not include it on my list, and I did see it. I don't know. Did you see the play?
I saw some of the film adaptation of it. Like I saw a rendered down version on YouTube as somebody else was talking about it, but I read the book when it came out, and it's pretty close.
Fair enough. Have you guys read Wicked or seen the play?
I have seen the play. I like the play a lot.
I've heard a little bit of it, but I have not seen it.
And it's very good. I don't know that I'd say it's better than The Wizard of Oz. It's just very different.
Well, I don't know that our list is necessarily better than. But...
Mine is.
How is it?
My list is the
I don't
best
follow
list.
instructions.
Well, rules are made to be broken.
I feel like Jim's list is going to be very slapped together at the last minute.
You think so?
Unlike Brandon's, which I'm sure has been planned out for weeks in advance. All right, Kale, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is The Scorpion King, which is the prequel to The Mummy. And it was the first major role that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson got in Hollywood.
I just call him
We
The
all-
Rock Johnson, but that's just because we know each other very well.
The Mummy was obviously a big hit back in the day, so they took a swing with this prequel. It was hit or miss with a lot of people, I think. But I mean, if you like the Mummy series, then you probably liked it.
Now there was a bunch of wasn't there a bunch of like direct-to-video sequels after that too? There were three more sequels. They go up to Scorpion King 4 Quest for Power. No word whether he got the power or not, but I'll bet he probably did.
Was that the power of
power?
Well, I think he too, like because The Rock appeared in one of the Mummy movies, and then the Scorpion King was like a prequel to that movie, I think, right? Was it two or three? I think it was 2, wasn't it?
Probably.
Fair enough. I don't know. Do you guys watch the King of the Scorpions?
I never saw it. I'm not sure. I mean, I think I saw the first Mummy. Isn't that Brendan Fraser?
Yeah.
Yes, it's Brendan Fraser. Brendan.
I don't think I saw any of them past there.
The only thing I remember about that specifically is the CGI on the Scorpion King in the second Mummy movie is like the worst CGI in the whole world. It's just like a rubbery thing that sort of kind of looks like The Rock, just kind of going like on top of a big scorpion body. It was that era of CGI where like the Matrix 2 and 3 kind of fell into, where these studios thought they had totally figured out CGI and didn't realize that it looked terrible at the time and looked even worse in retrospect. Like I remember that fight between.
Are you certain they didn't realize?
Well, yeah, like you remember that fight in the second Matrix movie, Reloaded, between Neo and all the Agent Smiths, and it just like looks like battle of the like rubber people. They're just like rubber people, like, and it's like this looks terrible.
I'd say, how could I forget? But I mean that as a plea.
Yeah, I don't really understand how they could not have seen it, because I remember seeing it at the time thinking, wow, these are really terrible.
But I mean, Scorpion King is definitely going to go down. It's like that's sort of like The Rock's first step into, you know, what he would be, which is, I think you can basically say The Rock is basically the new Arnold Schwarzenegger at this point. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that's really kind of on that level other than those two.
Yeah.
He'll be the next Governor.
Oh, God, probably.
So I will say the previews for Scorpion King were fantastic. I thought the movie was a pretty underwhelming, but not really necessarily in comparison to the Mummy. Neither one of them were very good.
Well, I mean, it's a bunch of people running through the desert and fighting each other and like battle and whatnot. It's fine.
A lot of them had that guy that kind of tied them all together. That I had the stuff drawn on his face.
Oded Fair, I think, isn't it?
I'll take your word for it. But yeah, he seems to tie a bunch of those movies together.
Yeah, he was in a really cool Showtime series about terrorism that I thought was very good. Okay, so Jim, what is your number 5 that you have been thought long and hard about these months?
This is going to be a little controversial, but Prometheus
hold all booze to the end.
In my opinion, I thought Prometheus was a pretty good movie. I don't know that it's a great alien origin story, but as far as it being a science fiction movie, that's a little scary, a little creepy. It's got some great acting in it, some great lines. The android is fantastic in it.
I'm a big Michael Fassbender fan, so I appreciate any Michael Fassbender in movies. That movie taught you exactly the wrong way to run away from things. I remember that scene where the ship, which is round, is rolling, and they're like running away from the rolling ship, which is like 60 feet in diameter. So instead, they could just run either direction and be out of the way of the ship in a matter of seconds. And yet they're just running away from this ship. And it's like, just go either like one way or the other way, just any way. You're just like, it's it is very frustrating to rewatch that and just be like, why would you run that way?
But what if you're worried he was going to fall down like a quarter and do the whammy, whammy, whammy thing on you?
But it's a giant rolling thing, so like he could do that. But it's got a big hole in the middle, so even if it did fall over, you'd probably still be safe.
A road, you're driving down the road, like on a city street, even not even going very fast. It could be like anything, like a freaking rabbit or something. And instead of just going one way or the other, just keep trying to run like in the straight path that you're going in. It's like, I'm honestly not trying to kill you.
No, I think you're right. I think Prometheus probably would have been received a lot better had it not been tied to the Alien series, which it probably should have been. I mean, it should have just been its own, separate sci-fi thing. But I'm sure ticket sales probably had something to say about that.
I also kind of like that. I can't ever say his name. It's Fassbender.
Fassbender.
That's
what I was just saying. The android.
Yeah, the android.
Magneto.
I love that he is obsessing about a movie and quoting it to himself. Like, seems like a geeky guy kind of thing to do. And also, it's a great choice. He is obsessing about Lawrence of Arabia.
By the way, my problem. So I have seen this, and I have seen Alien Covenant, and they blend together so much that I very much get them mixed up. Because they're very similar movies. I don't, Brandon, do you see Prometheus?
Nope.
Fair enough.
I went ahead and took your word for it that it was bad and never ended up seeing it.
Go see it.
Okay.
I mean, you don't really have to.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, Brandon, go out in a theater and see Prometheus right now.
I don't know, Kale, what was your overall thoughts on Prometheus? Do you like it, not like it?
It's on my list. Yeah, I think that as far as it being tied into the Alien movies is quite a stretch. But I mean, as a standalone sci-fi movie, it is pretty good. There's some pretty good effects, and like there is some kind of shocker moments, kind of thriller moments in it. So it is kind of sci-fi horror.
Yeah, I mean, I give it shit. I give it shit. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just it didn't seem like it was what it was sort of. It didn't seem like it was what it purported to be, like especially when it was coming out.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna blow up some lists early, and my number 5 is a little known franchise that takes place among the stars, called Revenge of the Sith. So this is the last in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. It's the only one of the prequel trilogy that I can really watch and get kind of any enjoyment out of. I still don't love it, but it definitely has some good fight scenes. You got to get rid of the awful no at the end, but I think it's entertaining. It's an entertaining movie, and it's the Stars Wars. So, Brandon, what are your opinion of the third Stars Wars?
That one wouldn't have been on my list. None of the three are particularly good, like you're saying. But I nominated the Phantom Menace entirely for Darth Maul. I thought Darth Maul was interesting, and his further arc later on in the cartoon series Clone Wars is also really good and really interesting. So I nominated Phantom Menace, though I could have left the rest of it altogether. But
also Battle of the Fates is an awesome song. Is an awesome, like where there that initial battle between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. That's great music.
Well, and the Revenge of the Sith one is just, I don't know, it's way too much Christian, whatever his name was.
Hayden Christensen. I think there is some kickback again, and I think maybe Hayden Christensen gets more hate than he deserves. I mean, he was doing what George Lucas wanted him to do. So I think ultimately any problems you have with these movies really fall down to George Lucas, because I mean, he basically had.
I'm fine with that.
He had free reign to do anything he wanted, and sometimes for directors, the worst thing you can do is let them do whatever they want. Kale, what about you? Did you feel like revenging any Sith?
I did not include any of the Star Wars trilogy prequels because I didn't think of them as prequels. I think of them as parts of the series. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, it's not like these stories weren't there and now they are. These stories were already there. So to me, it's not really technically a prequel.
Yeah, but the stories weren't there. There was the suggestion that there was a story, but they weren't. It's not like George Lucas had this all written out. You know, I mean, clearly with the sequel series, you know, the Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. I mean, there clearly was not a plan at all. Like these were movies that were written individually to sort of satisfy the need they felt at the time. So I think they definitely qualify as prequels, but that's just my opinion.
All right. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I watched the movie. I've watched it multiple times on purpose, even. And I don't think it's as terrible as some people do, I guess.
I don't dislike it. I think it's all right. I mean, hence why it's on my list.
So my opinion of the prequels is actually kind of shifted. When they came out, I really disliked Phantom Menace. I probably liked this the Clone Wars movie the best, and Revenge of the Sith I was kind of so on, and it's flip-flopped. If I rewatch any of them, it's actually Phantom Menace. I fast forward through the stuff on Coruscant, and other than that, like most of the stuff that happens in the movie is actually pretty entertaining. I mean,
would you say the weakest part all around is Anakin Skywalker? Even as a kid, I mean, just all together, like his story's just, why are we even following it, really? Let Darth be Darth.
I think that's my biggest problem with Revenge is they just do such a terrible job of making Anakin's story arc believable. Like,
well, I think the reason is just I think the writing is just very weak. I think it's just very weak writing. And yeah, Brandon, I would agree. Like in Phantom Menace, like they don't do a good job of sort of rationalizing why we're supposed to care about Anakin all that much and all this other Force stuff. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, they're all weak. I feel like Revenge of the Sith is the most Star Wars of those movies. But like, I guess that's why I put that up there. I
know they're coming out with no one now, but Obi-Wan is way more interesting than Anakin. I don't know. A lot of those people are more interesting. He didn't become interesting until he was Darth Vader. And then he was only interesting, you know, we've talked about this with bad guys before, in that limited sense. Like, if you had him in every 5 minutes or something, then who cares? It starts to lose its power, but it's honestly what
Star Trek Voyager did to the Borg, where the Borg was really scary enemies, and then in Voyager, all of a sudden you start having them in every other episode, and you're like, you know, the Borg actually aren't that scary. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I do like the movie. I kind of talk crap about it a little bit. I do enjoy the movie. I think it's fun. I don't think the Phantom Menace is that bad. The Attack of the Clones is painful. That is a painful one to watch. But that being said, Brandon, what is your number 4?
It probably is on other people's list too, so I was kind of hoping to not go first on this one, but I'm going to say the Temple of Doom. I'm a big fan of I can't say all. The actual 3 Indiana Jones movies I've seen multiple times, and especially the third one I've completely memorized.
By the way, Brandon, I'm assuming you mean the only 3 Indiana Jones movies that were ever made.
Right.
They never went back to those movies, and that's the only 3 that ever existed.
That's right.
Right.
But no, I would say that Temple is maybe my least favorite of the 3. But as a prequel, it does its job. I think it's really good.
Jim, let's go to you next, because I think I have this psychic intuition that you might possibly have something to say about this particular film.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. I think it's by far and away the worst Indiana Jones movie of the first 3.
The 3 movies that were made.
Yes.
The only 3 movies that were made.
If you compare it to Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, it should have won an Oscar.
I'm not sure what film you're talking about.
Right. So yeah. I also I feel like when I watched it, I didn't realize it was a prequel.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't realize it. I didn't think about it so much later on that way.
Yeah, I don't know what part of it was origin story, which is kind of what I think a prequel needs at least some nod to.
Kale, what about you?
Well, once again, this is another one of those films where I don't really think of it as a prequel. It's just one in the series to me. But I mean, as far as movies go, Temple of Doom is not one of my favorites of the Indiana Jones series. I mean, I don't want to shit all over it, but at the same time, I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it.
It's definitely got Indiana Jones moments. I mean, there's some really good parts in it.
By the way, one interesting note about that is the actor who played Short Round, whose name escapes me, had basically left acting for many, many years and came back for Everything Everywhere All at Once, as that was like one of his first big movies back. And he had come back because of the movie Crazy Rich Asians, because he felt like that was the first time they made him think like Asian people could actually be in movies and be main characters. And he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a absolutely bananas movie that everybody should watch. It is it is an absolute trip. It is. So there's two movies that have come out this year about multiverses, and I would definitely watch that one over the Doctor Strange one. And I didn't even dislike the Doctor Strange one that much. Anyway, Kale, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, I was going to say there are some quotable moments from Temple. The Kali Ma thing, I do that sometimes, and I remember the scene where the guy's got the swords and he's like just shoots him with his pistol or whatever. And then there's another scene like that toward the end where he thinks he's going to do that, but he doesn't have a gun, so he's getting.
Yeah, that is Raiders, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Raiders.
Oh. Well, anyway,
the heart thing.
The temple one, the scene that reminds me the most, it actually reminds me of the scene in the Ten Commandments, the one where the guy gets his turban caught under the wheel, and even though they're just fighting, Indiana Jones tries and saves him, tries to pull him out of it, but in the Ten Commandments, a woman gets caught underneath the grain threshing wheel too.
Do you think that's an homage to the Ten Commandments?
I mean, I don't know that it is necessarily, but when you're one of only two ones in existence that have something like it, I mean, I suppose you could count the tank scene in Saving Private Ryan. Isn't there one in there? Or is that, what's the one with Skarsgård, the HBO show? Was that in there?
Oh, you mean Band of Brothers?
Yeah, where the tank runs over the
I
guy.
can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that one. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean, there is a lot of sort of religious overtones to the Indiana Jones movies. I mean, most of them, the first and third, which are, I think, the best two, they're going, after overtly religious things. And Temple of Doom kind of does. I don't know. I'm just going to say, literally, I have not seen Temple of Doom since I was probably 12 years old. And I remember the heart thing. And at some point, they're on a plane and a lady eats monkey brains. And that's the extent of my knowledge of that movie.
Chilled the monkey brain.
Chilled monkey brains.
Or when they like got the
because foreign people eat weird things.
Yeah, they're like, here's a culture that we'll use to, like make people worried and scared of because they don't understand it.
Good job.
It's so funny because everywhere you go, like the most popular food is the food from immigrants. Like if you're in the U.S., everybody eats Mexican food. If you're in Great Britain, everybody eats Indian food. If you're in Germany, everybody eats Turkish food. Like we like weird food.
If you're in, the border or some weird country, then all the tourists eat the monkey brains while the other guys go to like Bebop's or something. The locals all go to McDonald's.
R.I.P. Ruddles. Okay, Kale, what is your number 4? By the way, that was a super local reference for a restaurant that's been out of business for like 20 years. So just ignore that.
Well, I think Bebop's is too. I don't think it's too far outside of the Midwest.
Well, but it's still around. By the way, if you come to the Midwest, eat at Bebop's. Bebop's like I think the best burgers in Iowa.
Arguably one of the best, yes. Top 3 at least.
Kale,
my numero 4 is Red Dragon.
Oh, you stole it from me.
Silence of the Lamb. which I personally don't remember a whole lot of, but I know it was pretty good, and it had some interesting interactions between Norton and Anthony Hopkins, uh, and just like Bradley Cooper. I think is that the guy with the tattoos on his back?
You mean the main bad guy?
Yeah, or is
No, I
that?
think it's Ray Fiennes, isn't it?
It's Ray Fiennes.
Oh, okay. Like, okay, there's just like he's psycho. He does some crazy stuff in that movie. Biting that dude's tongue out. That was pretty gross.
Jim, since this pick was clearly stolen from you by Kale, even though he came up with this first, what is your Red Dragon comment?
So I think one of the things I like about it is it actually does kind of make you feel for the villain a little bit. Like it feels like a tragedy. Like he almost, there's this glimmer that maybe he's going to overcome his traumatic past, but he doesn't. And I don't know. I just think the acting is really great. I think the story arc is be interesting. Pretty gross scenes in it. Oh, I liked it quite a bit. I mean, I don't know that it's better than Silence of the Lambs, but I think it's very good.
I would say it's definitely not better than Silence of the Lambs. I do like it though. I think it's a good movie. I think it's got a great cast too. There are two things I wanted to mention. One is if you go to Hannibal, which is the sequel to Silence of the Lambs, they did the thing which I think kind of really hurt the character of Hannibal Lecter a lot, which is making him free. And once he's free, he immediately starts to lose some of his menace. I mean, the reason he's so menacing in Silence of the Lambs is because he's in a cage. And I think putting him back in that cage for the prequel is a good idea. And it's got a great, so Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, Edward Norton as Will Graham, Ralph Fiennes as, what was they say his real name on here, but I can't remember the name
Red
of it.
Dragon.
It was the Red Dragon, of course. Duh. And then Harvey Keitel played Jack Crawford. Philip Seymour Hoffman had a part in it. Just a really, really solid cast. And I think that, putting him back in prison and have him have to sort of spar with somebody who's maybe his equal, whereas in Silence of the Lambs, Clarice Starling is kind of, not sort of up to this task. She has to sort of rise to the occasion. Whereas Will Graham's character is this person who's sort of kind of Hannibal Lecter's equal. What's interesting is that has played out several times now, because there's the Hannibal television show, which I have not watched. Well, I have not watched all of it. I watched a little bit of. I think it's very, very good and has Mads Mikkelsen in the part. But if you go all the way back to 1986, this was originally made as the film Manhunter. And you had William Peterson of CSI fame playing Will Graham, and Brian Cox playing Hannibal Lecter, and the great Tom Noonan, who has played a horror guy in a million different things, playing the Red Dragon. And
I actually remember watching that and enjoying it.
It's not a bad movie. It's way before Silence of the Lambs. I mean, it's probably like solid 6-7 years before Silence of the Lambs. Dennis Farina plays Jack Crawford, and Stephen Lang, who always should have played Cable, playing a part in that as well. It's solid cast, solid movie. Yeah.
Tom Noonan tends to make me smile. I picture him in a yellow slicker.
I just saw him in another horror movie where it's some girl who's supposed to be babysitting for his kids, but it turns out he's the leader of a satanic cult because he's Tom Noonan. Of course, he's the leader of a satanic cult.
Of course. Who else is going to do it?
Like, I'm Tom Noonan. I guess I'm going to kill some people.
Yeah, but according to our discussion that we were having last week, or last weekend after our tasting,
which will be released in like 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
We thought it was funny that the Satanists were getting involved in all these charitable things that the other churches are doing.
Well, these were movie Satanists, so they were evil, whereas real Satanists are just like regular people who are usually trying to defend free speech. So Jim, what was your number 4?
Um, I I am going with Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I don't know if it's technically a prequel. I mean, it's definitely a prequel to the original movie Planet of the Apes.
Now, just for clarity, is this the new one or the 70s one?
The new one.
Okay.
And I mean, I loved the Planet of the Apes movies when I was a kid. They obviously got way worse each one. The amount of money they were spending on the movies was dropped precipitously. I mean, I think the final movie with the final battle scene is mostly people running around with school buses.
For like $5.
Right. But I really liked this last trilogy, and especially the first movie, The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which really is kind of a tragedy story about a scientist trying to cure his father of brain disease, and how sometimes trying to do good can lead to bad things.
I agree. I thought those were really good.
I have not seen War for the Planet of the Apes, but I've seen the other two, and I thought those movies were way better than they had any right to be.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think they were going to be any good at all, and I thought they were both. And again, I hear War is good too, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to say.
Is that Andy?
Hear War?
Circus?
Yeah. Andy Serkis, yeah.
Yeah, Rise of the Apes is on my list too, Jim. So, yeah, I'm right there.
Revenge.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was really, of all the prequels that we were looking at for these lists, I really felt like that one was probably the one that fit the bill the best, because it really was an origin story.
Yeah, they're really good.
It's funny. I feel like I don't have a ton to say about them, but I liked all of them. I watched the first two, and it was like one of those things where I was going to watch the third one, but got interrupted or something, and just didn't. But the other two were great. Sort of like a throwback to when Hollywood blockbusters were actually good,
right?
Because most of them, not so much. Okay, my number 4 is one that I am like 99% sure none of you have seen, but I'm gonna. And by the way, that might be a going theme. We'll see. Is Ouija: Origin of Evil? So Blumhouse came out with a really, really what I would call a shitball horror movie that was sponsored by Parker Brothers or whoever owns the Ouija franchise. And it's a Ouija movie, and it was the most supremely by the numbers, boring ass. It's funny because it came out in like 2014, and it felt like a late 90s, just by the numbers horror movie directed by Joe Aswell. And so when it came to, so I didn't watch that one, but I saw the reviews at the time, and it was like, well, this thing's a piece of garbage. And then they came out with a prequel called Ouija: Origin of Evil, which was obviously a prequel to the first movie. And it did not come out to a great degree of fanfare until people started realizing that it was directed by Mike Flanagan, who did Oculus, and he did The House. Well, he later did the House, the Haunting of Hill House, and The Haunting of Bly Manor, and Midnight Mass, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he actually made this fantastic prequel to this shitty horror movie. They turn up the horror, they turn up the scares significantly. It's done in such a way where it's very subtle in certain parts and very overt in other parts. It's not very gory. I don't really think there's much on-screen blood at all. But it's just really well made, and it just so comes out of nowhere. And the only reason I watched it is because I've been hearing about this, for a long time, that people were like sort of blown away by this prequel that was, 100 times better than the original movie, which was just garbage. So if you watch the original, or if you've not heard of these, I would, skim through the original, maybe watch it on 1.5 speed, because most of the stuff's not going to matter. And then watch Ouija: Origin of Evil, because it's a very, very effective horror movie. There's a lot of really stuff. If you watch a lot of Mike Flanagan, but Hush, that's probably his best horror movie in my mind. Hush is fantastic. And it stars his wife, who's great in the movie. There's a lot of subtle things that are going on in the background it's really worth like a second watch, because on a second watch, you start to notice, oh, wait a minute, there's a shadow there that shouldn't be there. And there's a thing moving there that shouldn't be there. So yeah, Ouija, Origin of Evil, not one I expected to be on my list, but it very much is. It's a really, really solid prequel to a supremely shitty horror movie. And this is where I ask if any of you guys have seen either the original Ouija or the prequel.
No.
It's all right.
Not even heard of him.
I will say no, but based on some previous episodes, I was a big fan of Midnight Mass, and I have not watched very much Mike Flanagan's stuff, but after watching that, made me feel like I needed to go explore some of his movies.
Yeah, if you want a Mike Flanagan thing, I would watch Oculus and read the Wikipedia entry for the original Ouija and then watch the prequel. Because like there are some things that happen in the movie that sort of set up things that happen in the prequel. But the original Ouija is just so it's sort of interesting because it's not even bad. It's just incredibly by the numbers and very, very generic. Like you watch the movie and it's like every beat, it's like, oh, let me guess, they're going to try the thing that they've thought about trying all movie and it's not going to work. So then they're going to have to try another thing. And then you're going to get to the end and realize, oh, the thing didn't really go away like they thought it was going to go away. And it's like, oh, for Christ's sake. And then the prequel's amazing. So, I mean, not amazing. It's good. It's a very solid horror movie. Anyway, enough of me gushing about a horror movie that nobody that I'm talking to has seen or that anybody that is watching this has watched. Brandon, what is your number 3?
Is it all right if I nominate one that I don't think is very good?
It is entirely your list. We have proven
right.
you already selected a movie that isn't even a movie. And I think Jim selected one that's not actually even a prequel. So we have no rules.
All right. Well, I'm going to nominate Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. That's
the first one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If it was just a movie set in magical Britain, that might be better. But as some sort of introduction to the world we later know as some sort of progression from Grindelwald to Voldemort and to Harry Potter, it's the equivalent of the heroes fight behind the door thing. It's just, why follow this guy? Maybe if I saw the second part of that movie, it would make more sense. But to me, it's just like, I already dislike J.K. Rowling as a person, but I wanted to see it because I do like the movies. I thought the movies were very good. I even thought the books were decent. But, man.
Well, if the reviews are to be believed, the third one just came out and is apparently going to be the first Harry Potter movie to make under $100 million in the entire run of the thing. I think it's very likely we will not get a fourth one of those.
But honestly, like I said, if it was just a movie about some weird guy way back when, fine. I don't mind movies about regular people doing, kind of magical things and having adventures. That's fine. But Newt Scamander is some way to tell a story of someone who is arguably the most important person before Voldemort. Also Dumbledore's beginnings. Why even go there? Why skirt it? Why, I don't know. Why
the weirdest thing about those movies, and then I'll let these guys talk about it, but I think this is so freaking, it's just like a product of Hollywood. In the first movie, you have Colin Farrell playing the villain. And then inexplicably in the end, you find out like Colin Farrell uncast a spell, and it turns out he wasn't Colin Farrell, he was Johnny Depp all along. And it's like the most ineffective reveal since like that Star Trek 2 remake where Benedict Cumberbatch is like, I am Khan. And everybody's just like, oh, okay. We don't know what that means, but sure. And then, so then Johnny Depp is Grindelwald in the second one, but then Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and I'm not even getting into that whole mess. So they fired him. And then now in the third one, it's Mads Mikkelsen playing Grindelwald. So Grindelwald has essentially been played by 3 actors in 3 movies.
Well, and those are so off. Like, Johnny Depp is not a scary person, so not a good Grindelwald. Mads Mikkelsen is a fucking scary person and way too much for Grindelwald. Find a middle.
Well, I don't understand why they didn't stick with Colin Farrell. I thought Colin Farrell was actually pretty good in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, why do you feel the need to be like, but actually Colin Farrell is Johnny Depp? And it's like, But why in the movie would they care about that? That doesn't make any sense.
Maybe they should have gone back and said, actually, Johnny Depp is Colin Farrell.
Actually, he really is Colin Farrell. No, now
I mean,
that
if I had to spend time in a room with Mads Mikkelsen or Voldemort, I know who I'd choose. I mean, just, I don't know. It's too much one way or the other.
By the way, the Mads Mikkelsen movie where he's a teacher, and it's two other teachers and they decide to basically be functioning alcoholics is very, very good. I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head, but it's very, very good. And it's very un-Mads Mikkelsen because he's just like, he's a teacher and there's like two other teachers and they just decide to start drinking all the time. Watch
him gut somebody with an arrowhead in Valhalla.
But he doesn't in that one. He just drinks. He just drinks all the time and makes a fool of himself. Yeah. No, I think that's actually a good movie. I don't know. I've been monopolizing. I apologize. Jim, Kale, what did you guys think of that one? Or did you guys watch that one?
The Fantastic Beasts. I may have seen it a bunch of
solid recommendation.
Do you like the Harry Potter movies though?
I don't hate them. I never really got into it, I guess. Maybe I felt like it was out of my age bracket. It's just not something that really got my attention.
Jim, what about you in the Harry Potter averse?
So I feel like they really missed the boat by not making books first, because I don't know. I read all the Harry Potter books and I thought the Harry Potter movies were okay. And I feel like I would not have enjoyed the Harry Potter movies at all if I hadn't read the books. I would have been like, this is weird. There's really no explanation for what's going on. Why are they doing this? It's pretty complicated. And I feel like having read the Harry Potter series and watching Fantastic Beasts, it just seems like it would have benefited from having been written as a book first, so they could work out some of the kinks in the story and figure out where they're going. It just seemed like Brandon, it seems like kind of aimless story, honestly.
Yeah, aimless is a good word for it.
Yeah. And the second movie, it did not get any better. The second movie, I was like, this is worse.
Well, the second movie, because like in the first movie, Newt Scamander is supposed to be the main character. But then in the second movie, it's like, no, Dumbledore's the main character. But then why didn't we just make all the movies about Dumbledore? Like, what's the point of having him? Right. Or have Dumbledore just be this sort of ancillary character who maybe pops in? I don't know. It's a very strange way of writing.
Well, and I can't cast any shade on the guy who played him because I don't know anything else about him, but why him?
Brandon, I think that kind of is casting a little shade.
I guess. I don't mean it personally. He doesn't seem like, I don't know.
Nothing personal. Why do we need this asshole?
I really don't think casting is a problem. I mean, they got fantastic actors for all of these movies.
And beasts.
You know who I would have put there, Brandon?
I thought the Harry Potter movies were well cast. Sorry, Kel, go ahead.
I would have put Matt Smith in that position.
I think that's what they were going for, was Matt Smith, but again, tone-wise, I'm not sure why. Do you want light and levity around the beginnings of Grindelwald? That seems... I don't know. I mean, I know he's too old, but Rufus Sewell would have been amazing, you know? I don't know. Could have done...
I wanted to mention one other thing that is sort of interesting about this franchise, is this franchise had the misfortune to cast... someone named God, now his name's escaping me. The guy who's playing the person who's playing the Flash as well.
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller. So they, by the way, non-binary, using the proper pronouns and all that. They are currently on what could only be described as a fucking rampage in Hawaii. They've been arrested like 4 times in the last month for like attacking people in bars, and like they broke into somebody's house and was like standing in their bedroom while they were asleep. Just like this really crazy shit. So they were in obviously this new Fantastic Beasts movie, which is the Secrets of Dumbledore, I think. And they're in The Flash, which is a movie that has gone through something like I don't know, 4 or 5 different directors and 5 or 6 different writers over the past 3 or 4 years to try and film this movie. And both of those franchises are for Warner Brothers. And I've secretly believed that Warner Brothers is hiring hitmen to go after Ezra Miller. Just like, can you please just go somewhere, sit there, and just be quiet for like a year until this movie comes out. So
they about to get their ass kicked.
it is a, like, just look it up, all this stuff, like this Hawaii thing, like Ezra Miller's just been on a, like they keep going to this same bar and just getting in these huge fights and getting arrested. And there's like, they were coming out like yelling at the police and like filming things. And it's just it's a huge circus. It is a huge circus. It's one of those things, like, I feel bad even making fun of it, because it's like, it seems like there must be some kind of a mental health problem going on here, because it's constant and it's really bizarre.
Or 20 years from now, you'll find out it was part of the promotional movement by Warner Brothers. It's Ezra Miller from a different reality.
Well, it's like that. It's like, what's his name did that one interview on like David Letterman, where he was in character for a movie he was filming at the time. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole mess. That being said, Kale, what is your number 3? We've talked enough about the Harry Potter.
My number 3 is Prometheus, which has already been mentioned. Like I said, solid sci-fi horror film. A little far-fetched on the alien thing. I mean, they really, really, really try to tie the alien thing in there. I'll give them an E for effort on that. With the weird pod things and I mean, it's all very symbolic of what you already know, though. Like the black liquids in those little stone things that kind of look like the eggs, and like they kind of show how the xenomorph evolves to a more humanoid form. And the lady that cuts the thing out, that part's pretty crazy. And in Michael Fassbender's head that still talks. Even after the big alien guy rips it off. It's I mean, it's got some scenes in there that I won't forget. I guess I never my real question, I never saw the other one you were talking about, the Covenant one.
Alien Covenant's bad. It's bad.
Does it explain any more who the giant alien guys were and why they made people or whatever?
Yeah, a little bit, not
kind of. Lot. Plus, like, they all die in the first like 5 minutes of the movie. Like, Fassbender just kills them all. And that's not a spoiler. It literally happens in the first 5. Like, he flies in and just kills them all. That's the beginning of the movie.
Do you think spoilers only start at 6 minutes into a movie?
Yes, it's 6.5 minutes in. I'm sorry, you can't complain you spoiled something that happens before the credits roll. You just can't. I'm sorry. It's right there. By the way, one thing that was weird about that movie. Oh, yeah. So the Guy Pearce role in that movie. So they put all the aged makeup on Guy Pearce for that movie, which was so weird because originally there was supposed to be some kind of a flashback or he was going to get young or something because you were going to have like regular age Guy Pearce. But all that stuff got cut out. And so you just have Guy Pearce in old man makeup for no reason. Because you never see him young. He's never young. It's just like, oh, there's Guy Pearce. Why is he in all that old guy makeup?
Because he wants to get the secret of everlasting life or whatever.
Nim?
Yep.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the old Nazi guy from Bulletproof Monk.
Of course, a movie that we all know and remember very well.
You don't remember that?
I think I remember the cover. Is it Chow Yun? No, it's Chow Yun Fat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and Sean William Scott, a.k.a. Stifler.
A.k.a. a guy who got his head cut off in Final Destination 1. Memorable death. Very memorable death.
Anyway, but we're not here to talk about Bulletproof Monks. We're here to talk about Prometheus.
And Jim, what is your number 3? I assume everybody's already said everything about Prometheus they had to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
except you should go watch it. Just not as a prequel.
It's fine.
I'm gonna go with the superhero prequel, X-Men First Class.
Son of a bitch.
I knew that one would come up.
So all in all, I think it's a pretty good prequel. Seems like it's like a prequel set in an alternate universe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. That was just my overall impression.
I don't know if they ever. I mean, the X-Men timeline, film timeline, is so kind of bizarre that I don't know if anybody knows which timeline is which. It's a really good movie though. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw was really, really good.
Yeah, I like that as well. Tremendous cast. Michael Fassbender again.
Fassbender.
Fassbender. Whatever.
Jennifer Lawrence too.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence. So just real quick, I just want to say the only negative thing I have to say about X-Men First Class, and that is, what's her name? January Jones plays the absolute most dead wooden Emma Frost that I've ever seen. Like, Emma Frost is such a cool, dynamic character, and like every time January Jones,
isn't she supposed to be?
Every time January Jones walked on screen, I just wanted to yell timber, because just like another wooden scene where she just walks out and just like says a line. And it's like, Emma Frost is supposed to be this super like bitchy, rich asshole. Like, and January Jones played her so deadpan. It's infuriating to me that, it's such an awful portrayal of that character.
I will say my least favorite part was the making havoc, where a thing, like some sort of contraption on him. I really did not understand that at all.
I think the whole reason they just didn't want to have Cyclops, because they had Cyclops in the other ones, and so it's just like, well, we can't have Cyclops, let's have his brother, and he'll go like this, and then like some things will shoot out.
Well, how hard is it? Like, he doesn't shoot things out of his eyes.
Also, they killed Darwin by, like, you can't kill Darwin. That's the whole point of the character. He can't. He evolves. He has the mutant power to evolve out of anything he'll do. In the comic books, he literally evolved beyond death. Like, death tried to kill him and couldn't kill him. And like Sebastian Shaw, like, touched his tongue or something and he died. And it's like, that's
put Havoc's energy ball in his mouth.
It's still
We've
bullshit.
been over this like 3 times.
Yeah, and it's bullshit. It was bullshit all those times. It's still bullshit.
I didn't put First Class on this because, once again, it was one of those ones where I thought it was a good origin story, but I didn't think it was like a prequel.
It's totally a prequel. It's absolutely a prequel.
All right.
I think that Fassbender is, this might be controversial. I think he's a better Magneto than Ian McKellen, and I love Ian McKellen as Magneto. I think he's fantastic. I think that Patrick Stewart is still the superior Charles Xavier. But yeah, especially that first scene where he's going after the Nazis. I love when he's like sitting at the table, like having the beer and talking to these guys, and they slowly realize, like, they see the tattoo on his arm, and he's just sitting there smiling as they realize how fucked they are. It's just such a great scene.
I thought it was really good. It was one of the best prequels out there.
But farmers, tailors.
Say again, Kel. Sorry, I couldn't hear
you. I said they had no name. It was taken from them by farmers and tailors.
Yeah, and yeah, they realized that they were not in good shape. And like the guy that played, I don't know who it was that played the main demon.
Azrael.
Azazel. Jason Fleming. By the way, talk about a character. Jason Fleming has been in 100,000 movies, and you've noticed him in about 5 of them, and he's always really good. It's kind of a shame. Zoe Kravitz played Angel. Well, that version of Angel. Jennifer Lawrence was really good as Mystique. Rose Byrne played Moira McTaggart. I don't know. It's just a really, really good cast all around. Nicholas Hoult as Beast. Just a really, really good cast. And just January Jones just just a big old piece of dead wood in that movie. Just unbelievably dead in that movie. Still makes me mad.
As a side note to all X-Men movies, is there a reason that they just never seem to do anything with Cyclops?
Oh, they do. They do. I think they don't. It never made it into the television show or the movies very much, but in the comics they have. Cyclops, I think, is a very. I think Cyclops is a very divisive character. There are some people that really love him, and a lot of people that really hate him.
He's one of my favorites.
Jim, how would you describe the general feeling among fans towards Cyclops?
I don't really know, but I don't know how you make him super entertaining because he's kind of a strong, silent type that, like, I don't know, doesn't seem to really act on the things that he wants. And then there's other characters that are more dynamic, more feeling, and sometimes he gets left behind.
But Mike's talked about it before. I think the 90s cartoon did him as well as anybody has or could. And, I really, that's where my fandom of Cyclops started to grow, is in that cartoon. But just like all the movies, just kind of, he's very much some shuffled to the side guy.
And by the way, if you're a fan of the X-Men, how do I say this without spoiling anything? I'm not going to say anything. Ignore it. Moving on. So is it my turn for number 3?
I think so.
Okay. You know what? I'm kind of shuffling my list around a little bit because somebody took one that was higher up. X-Men First Class is my number 1. It's a great movie. You should watch it, even though January Jones is terrible in it. Actually, you know what? For number 3, I think I am going to go Bumblebee, because that was another one of those ones that came completely out of the blue, out of a franchise that I had basically stuck a fork in years ago, and started hearing a lot of good, just good press about Bumblebee. And it's a great little movie with great special effects, and we actually get to see what a live action Transformers movie could have looked like that would have been good. And it's great. It's really fun. It's not as like big and high stakes as a lot of the other Transformers movies are, but I think that's kind of its strength. And it's just really good. It's just a fun little movie about a little car, a girl in her car.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next nomination.
There you go.
I was a big fan of the TV show as a kid, the cartoons. And I still like a lot of the cartoons that places like Netflix keep putting out. But the movies are terrible. I mean, they look like somebody poured glue on a junkyard and it came to life for some reason. They're unrecognizable trash monsters, and I hated every single thing about it. But Bumblebee's really good. I mean,
all the Transformers in the Transformers movie look like they are in agony. They're just like, kill me! Why do I look like this?
I don't know. Well, they're all terrible. But Bumblebee, I was not only surprisingly happy with, like, it's my go-to. If, like, Coulson wants to watch a Transformers movie, I suggest Bumblebee.
Well, and you've got the great shots on Cybertron where you see, like, you get to see Optimus Prime, like the way he's supposed to look.
Yeah.
Not like some garbage that was painted to look like Optimus Prime. Oh, yeah. Kale, what did you see that one?
I did not see Bumblebee because the other ones, I kept trying to give it another chance until I was just finally like, nope, I can't take it anymore. And then they're like, hey, they came out with this Bumblebee one, and guess what? It's not terrible. And I'm like, no, it's like The Boy That Cried Wolf already for me. I'm done. I'm out.
I'm telling you, Bumblebee's good.
Forget all the rest of them. Watch Bumblebee.
It is good.
Right. I'm with Kale on this one. I watched multiple Transformer movies and just kind of gave up because they weren't great to begin with, and they got worse and worse and worse.
I would just like to say you're right for doing that. You're right for giving up on them. Like, I feel like I was the weak one because I broke down and finally watched Bumblebee, but I did, and it's very good. It's very fun. It's just a fun little action movie. Where in the big Transformers movies, everything is these world stakes. Every single movie. Oh, we got to save the world from blah or the thing in the moon or whatever, and it just gets tiresome. I mean, on top of how bad they look, like just the plots are really tiresome and they're long and filled with product placement. And Bumblebee's just like a little movie about this, and you get the sort of Cybertron shot, which I don't know, Brandon, what do you think about the Cybertron shot where it actually shows like Autobots fighting Decepticons in a way that looks
well, I mean, even that part reminds me of the cartoon movie. Because it starts off as Cybertron, you get 3-4 minutes of Cybertron, and then you're done. You move on.
Yeah, it's a good one. Brandon.
Show Cybertron Dark of the Moon.
Well, no, they don't. Kale, they don't. So Brandon, that was your number 3 as well?
Well, you did number 3. I think it was my number 2.
Oh. Well, do you want to go again or do you want to wait till the next round?
No, we can move on. That I agree that was really good. That was what my pick was.
Well, I guess we would be your number 2. So yeah, so Kale, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is a big steaming pile of number 2 called Rogue One. And the reason I put it at number 2 for our top 5 prequels is because it finally explains the age-old question, who are the Bothans?
Kale, I think if you're a real Star Wars fan, you'd know the Bothans were the ones that get the plans to the new Death Star in Return of the Jedi, and Rogue One is the ones that get the plans for the original Death Star in Star Wars.
Anyway, everybody dies. They all
I gotta
die.
say, I really like that one too. I thought Rogue One was pretty good.
I've watched it a handful of times. Mads Mikkelsen, great. You get just that little bit of Darth Vader, especially the big scene at the end from A New Hope, where it kind of picks up where A New Hope picked up. I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody if anybody's out there that hasn't
Kale,
seen
you
it.
literally started off by saying they all die, and then afterwards
you
you're
already
like,
did.
I don't want to spoil anything.
You might as well have said it's like the Titanic, but I don't want to tell anyone that everyone dies.
Happens before everyone dies, though.
I mean,
But
Bruce
at the
Willis was a
end-
ghost all along, but I don't want to spoil anything.
Bruce Willis is Darth Vader.
Is no Colin Farrell's Darth Vader, but then he turns out he's Johnny Depp.
I will say that I think the cast of Rogue One is pretty great. Donnie Yen is playing the guy who's like not force sensitive, but is like kind of trying to be, or is kind of maybe a little force sensitive. Riz Ahmed, and it's just Diego Luna, Alan Tudyk's playing the voice of the thing. My problem is, and this is a problem with the Marvel movies, I think to some degree too. I feel like they've hacked movies, and it's like, well, we have one sassy sidekick, we have one person who's like coming along grudgingly, and we have 6 stops along the way to the MacGuffin. It's just like, and that was my problem with Rogue One. I just felt like it was just like a movie that had been developed by a computer to be like a good action sci-fi movie, and it kind of bugged me.
And the guy who plays the robot,
But it was a good action sci-fi movie.
I can never remember his name, but he's really good.
I felt like we never got enough time with the characters to really, because I think it's like Donnie. Who's the guy who's Donnie Yen's friend? Is that Baze Malbus? Is that right?
The guy with the big gun.
You don't get enough time because they all die.
The fact that you don't remember sort of proves my point. But I like their relationship, which we get like 6 lines of dialogue to set up their relationship. Meanwhile, throughout the plan, this whole quest to get the plans, we have to stop at 25 different planets. And we're always rushing from planet to planet. We never get anybody to sit down and have a conversation for 5 seconds. And so I was frustrated with that. I do think it does have a great cast, though. I can't argue.
On a side note, is it weird that they keep casting these like pretty famous Asian actors and then giving them like 2 seconds, and then all the white people get all the main screen time? I mean, Donnie Yen's a big deal.
That's why you should watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, because
Iko Uwais is a pretty big deal, and he just got barely any time anyway.
He's IP now.
I'm gonna second something that Kale said earlier.
Don't you dare.
The giant sarcastic robot is fantastic.
But again, that's part of where I felt like, and that's Alan Tudyk. And Alan Tudyk, I love. I think he's great. But it felt very much like, well, we need a sassy sidekick. Make it a robot. People like robots. That'll sell toys. And I was just like, there's like that at the back of everything of just, I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. There are no Ewoks.
Star Wars has, I'm sorry, Jim. Star Wars has the market cornered on sassy robots. That's their thing. They have sassy robots in all the movies.
But I don't need any more sassy. I feel like we're all like, our sassy robot meter is filled.
Wrong. This is best sassy robot.
That makes me think sell sassy somewhere else. We're all filled up here.
Sell sassy somewhere else.
So
I sell sassy, sell seashells down by the seashore.
I will also say it was refreshing. Like, I really was not into them telling the story because for quite a while I've been like, why are we focusing on the Skywalker timeline exclusively when there's thousands and thousands of years before and hundreds of years after this specific point in time? Why do we have to fill in each little minute thing that wasn't told in the first 3 films? But that being said, I found this refreshing that there wasn't a movie full of Jedis. Like, it was kind of like what you were saying about Hannibal Lecter being let loose. I feel like that with the Star Wars prequels. Like, there was too much Jedi, too much Force usage, that it wasn't special and ominous and magical and spooky because it was everywhere. And I feel like Rogue One got back to that because you had the one good guy that was kind of a Force user, but not really. And then Darth Vader shows up at the very end. So, I don't know.
Similarities, though, like, they're going after her dad. And, like, she knows that he's doing something for the bad guys, but she wants to try and save him. There's some similarities there to the original story, I think. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Well, to be clear, I don't hate Rogue One. In fact, there's stuff in there that I really like a lot. I think that ending Vader scene is probably the best Vader scene of any of them. I mean, I think it's certainly better than anything in the original trilogy.
And it's all they should have used of him.
Right. I thought the conversation between him and who is what's his name? The main villain of the picture.
The guy that's building the Death Star in the white uniform. I can't remember his name. He really plays a good
Ben Mendelsohn. That conversation that Vader and Ben Mendelsohn's character have was a little unnecessary, and I feel like if we would have saved Vader until the very end, that would have maybe made it had even more effect. And I liked a lot of the characters. I just felt like it was just too, I don't know, just like there didn't feel like a lot of emotion there, and it just felt like I was rushing between things. But that being said, Jim, I believe we're on to your number 2.
I'm starting to run out of prequels, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to steal something from somebody else, potentially. The Hobbit movies.
You are certainly not stealing them from me.
Nor me. Can't stand anything about that entire series.
So, once again, I don't see The Hobbit as a prequel because the book, The Hobbit, was there before Lord of the Rings stuff came out.
Well, Kale, we're not exactly enforcing strict regulations, and the movies came out before the other movies, so it's a prequel.
Well, okay, call it a prequel, whatever.
Just don't call it a comeback.
Yeah, because I will tell you, I have only fallen asleep in the theater twice, and both times it was one of the Hobbit movies, man. And I love these books. I loved the Lord of the Rings movies. I was the target audience, and I was bored out of my mind with these movies.
Jim, you know you're not selling them very well.
They're horrible. No one should ever watch these movies. There's absolutely nothing redeemable in them. They're just boring.
Well, the title is all wrong. They call it The Hobbit. What it should be called is this guy that hung out with a bunch of dwarves that did all the cool shit.
There and back again.
Once again, Jim, I feel like you haven't sold The Hobbit to me as a film series, particularly.
I am doing a public
I'm not
service.
feeling
that
your,
to be
I'm
the
not
true
feeling your
of-
love for these movies.
I'm doing a public service.
Token stuff.
If you are tempted to watch the extended version and waste 15 hours of your life, don't. Just
So what kills me is this: the Hobbit book. I went to Audible because I was curious about this. It is 11 hours long. The book, the entire book, is 11 hours long, and that is a person reading the entire thing verbatim. To turn an 11-hour book, which is what, probably 300 pages ish, to turn those 300 pages into 2+ hour movies each is pure insanity to me. I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how they got money to do that.
because The Lord of the Rings was awesome and it made a lot of money. I guess. It's just,
I guess. I mean, you're clearly right. I just don't understand it.
I can't believe they talked anybody into doing a further prequel TV series. Is it on Amazon?
I don't know. Is it prequel or is it just a series again?
It's way prequel. It's going back to like the Second Age.
You see, that I'm almost more interested in because I don't know anything and I can just kind of come in, clean. Now, I heard, and again, this is real solid news here, starting off with, I heard from the internet somewhere, maybe.
Some people say
that Jackson was pushed to doing a trilogy, that he was originally going to do 2 movies and they ended up pushing him to 3.
It could be, but how hard do you have to push him?
I don't know. That's
Like, I could tell these little parts.
Well, I've heard some fans say that they're glad it was not trying to cram, because we've seen what happens when somebody tries to cram too much story into one movie.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and that is usually what happens because there's a lot of budget pressure. And unfortunately, in this instance, they either pressured him to turn it into a trilogy or they gave him free reign, and it was just a hot mess.
But I mean, Return of the King is much longer than The Hobbit, and they did that in 1 movie. So I
Right.
mean, imagine Return of the King would have been separated out into 3 movies.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they did that with the last. They did that with the last Harry Potter book, which was a mistake. Well, I mean, financially it wasn't because it made money, but I mean that first of the, how do you say this? The first of the last Harry Potter movies,
Where they just wander around.
yeah, it
for
was
3
absolutely
hours.
boring as hell. Just boring as hell. They're just
Yeah.
it's people walking around waiting for things to actually happen.
it's the first 500 pages of a 700-page book.
Right. And why would you make that into a movie? That's insane. And like Dune, they made it into 2 movies, but I feel like Dune, they found a really good stopping place. But again, we're not people who really like to talk about Dune, so we'll just move on.
Dude.
So I think I am going to go ahead and give my number 2 if we're done talking about Jim's number 2, The Hobbit. God, I'm trying to decide what to put away. So I've got all my mine picked. I haven't decided entirely in the order. I think I'm going to pick Paranormal Activity 3 because I thought Paranormal Activities is a near perfect horror movie. It's sort of picked up on the found footage aspect that they sort of, I mean, they didn't originate in the Blair Witch Project, but basically sort of popularized in the Blair Witch Project. And I think did it much better. I mean, Paranormal Activity is just a solidly better movie than Blair Witch. And it's not calling out Blair Witch necessarily, but it's just, I feel like in Paranormal Activity, they were able to build on those successes. And then in the second Paranormal Activity movie, which is also technically a prequel by like a week, they expanded way too much in like the camera angles. So in the original Paranormal Activity movie, there's 1 camera. And that gives the film a tremendous sense of claustrophobia, which helped the movie out a lot. The second movie, there's like, I don't remember, like 10 cameras, 5 cameras, something like that. And so you're constantly doing camera changes, and it feels more like a traditional horror movie in some ways. But there's also not a lot of action, so it feels like just kind of a boring traditional horror movie. Whereas in the third one, they went back to when the girls were younger, and their father had a camera, and so it goes back to sort of the 80s where there's traditional film cameras and whatnot. And I felt it was just very effective. It's the most effective prequel you could do of a found footage movie, and I think they did. It's a pretty good movie. Not my favorite, but I think pretty good. Have you guys been fans of the Paranormal Activity movies at all, or?
I did see the first one.
The first one's very good. The second one is not so good. The third one I think is better than the second one, although not as good as the first one. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say more to say about it than that, but it's a solid horror movie. Clearly, I'm a horror fan, and yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. So, Brennan, what did you think of the first Paranormal Activity movie? Did you like that one, or?
I am not much of a horror fan, but it wasn't bad. I think Blair Witch kind of holds a special place just because it was kind of the first to really take off with that kind of thing. But I thought Paranormal did it pretty well.
And there's actually some really interesting stuff on the second Blair Witch movie, as far as studio meddling, where that movie was basically chopped to pieces. Go ahead, Cale. Sorry.
I was just going to ask Brandon if he thought it was more intense or more thrilling than Ghosts That Still Walk.
Yes, it was.
I would say less intense, I think.
I mean, Ghosts That Still Walk wasn't a found footage movie, so it's just apples and oranges.
I would say for a variety of reasons. Anyway, I'll stop gushing about the second horror movie that I brought up, which nobody has seen, and move on to Brandon for your number one.
Are we going to do a number one, or can I do a quick...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, honorable mentions first. Honorable mentions all around, then we'll do number ones.
It's not... I think the most basic definition of a prequel is that it is filmed, at least in films, it is filmed after the first one that came out. Is the most basic. But, man, do I really want to nominate the first Terminator as the better prequel. Because the second Terminator is the Terminator movie. You know, it's the one that should have been first, and the first one should have come second to explain it. I don't know. It's just...
I mean, it's not a prequel, but okay.
Yes, it's not a prequel. I know, but...
We set rules that we do not give a shit about, and that's fine.
Right.
Because conversation shouldn't have rules. I mean, we should have them, but then feel free to break them when we feel like it, and I think that makes a more interesting conversation. That's fine. Kale, what honorable mentions do you have?
All the stuff that you guys said.
Okay. Jim.
I'm going to honorable mention Underworld: Rise of the Lichens. I think these Underworld movies are okay. I think they're fun. Some are action horror flicks. I think the third one is a prequel, and it's all right. It's entertaining. It's not horrible. It's all right.
I would like to agree. I would like to agree with Jim that it is in fact a prequel.
Lichen sounds like something that grows on trees, though.
Yeah, werewolves. They grow on trees.
Shit, the lichens.
I thought lichens were little algae that kind of have like bioluminescence.
Honey, don't pick the lichens.
Oh, you got lichens on you. Get them off.
Have you been swimming in the ocean?
So instead of doing my honorable mentions, I'm going to realize that due to my inadequate system of shortening names, Paranormal Activity was not my number 2. It's actually Puppet Master 3. So Paranormal Activity 3, was in my honorable mentions, as is From Dusk Till Dawn 3, which was a prequel to the From Dusk Till Dawn movies. and
that worth
Paranormal
watching?
Activity 3, which I didn't just talk about for 5 minutes.
Was Dusk Till Dawn 3 worth watching?
Yeah, it's great. It was a direct to video, so it's not a super high budget thing, but it's a super fun little action movie
Which
that takes
is-
place in a Mexican strip club.
Is it
Is
a
that
Danny? Is it a
Rodriguez
Danny
too?
Trejo movie?
I'm pretty sure Danny Trejo's in it. And it's basically the origin of Satanic Oil Pandemonium, later played by Salma Hayek. It's not like an amazing movie, but it's a lot of fun. So what I actually meant to be my number 2 was Puppet Master 3, which is Full Moon Studios. I've never had a chance on this channel to talk about my love of Full Moon Studios. And I will not talk about it for very long here because I know nobody has watched any of the Puppet Master movies here except for maybe Brandon or Kale if I force them to.
I've seen them.
And it's just like they go back in time, and Andre Toulon is a guy in Germany who's using his puppets to kill Nazis. And it's the highest budget. It's sort of the peak of Paramount funding these direct-to-video movies. So there's this thing that happened in the early 90s where big studios would fund direct-to-video outfits to just provide them with content to send to video stores. And so you have people like Charles Band at Full Moon that now could spend, $350,000 or $400,000 on a film, which at the time for them was like $1 jillion. And so you would get these kind of interesting little movies where a studio had allowed, Charles Band to go spend $500,000 on a movie. And it's really good. It's got great, David Allen, I think, did the stop motion animation. David Allen was basically the protege of Ray Harryhausen. Unfortunately, he died very young. And it's just got some of the best stop motion animation you'll find anywhere. And it's just
Full
really
Moon movies are really good.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
It's worth checking out.
Especially from that era where they actually got a little bit of funding. But that's the end of my number 2 / honorable mention / I can't read my own handwriting. Brandon, what is your number 1?
I'm going to go with Wonder Woman. They have it listed as a prequel for Batman versus Superman and for the Justice League. So that's fine by me, but I think Wonder Woman is a good movie. I really enjoyed the first one.
I think Wonder Woman, I guess it's a prequel. It doesn't really feel like a prequel.
It is set in the past, and it happens afterwards.
Again,
and I think it was filmed after at least BSV.
Well, clearly we're not enforcing any kind of rules or anything. My problem with Wonder Woman is this. I think it is about 2/3 of a really great superhero movie. I think the final act is just really, really bad CG and people flying around and you can't really tell what's going on. I think the first 2/3 is pretty good. So I think it is 2/3 of a great prequel.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Kale.
I think that one was decently cast too.
I wouldn't consider it specifically a prequel, but if you want to call it a prequel, that's fine.
What is your definition of a prequel, though, Kale?
To me, it seems like, okay, like keep it just in the movie realm. It's a movie about a series or another movie that already has come out, and now they've gone back to tell you like some origin of where that movie came from. That to me is a prequel.
You kind of just described Wonder Woman.
Huh?
I was going to say
you kind of just described one.
You just described Wonder Woman.
All
It came out after Batman v Superman and tells the story of Wonder Woman. I would agree that for me it doesn't feel like as much like a prequel because it was clearly planned at the same time they were coming out with those movies. But I think on the technical definition you can't really argue with it.
Would you say
right.
Godfather 2 is a prequel even though it's only half?
No, I wouldn't. That was listed in there too. That was one I wrestled with a little bit myself. And no, I would not. Because I mean, first of all, half of it literally isn't a prequel. Half of it is literally taking place, in the time of filming. But go ahead, Kale. Wonder Woman. What did you think of that movie?
I vaguely remember it. I watched it once and never watched it again. I know that she's dating Captain Kirk, and I don't even know what it's like around World War II or whatever.
It's World War One, and it's the Kelvin universe. Captain Kirk, KL. God, you're not even a good nerd. Jim, Wonder Woman.
I'm kind of with you. I feel like there were parts of it that were really good, and then by the end of the movie, I'm like, this was just okay. I feel like when it came out, there were a lot of my friends who thought it was a really excellent superhero movie. And as I've said before, for me, if it's an excellent movie, it's something that I want to watch again and again and again. And this is not a movie that I want to watch again and again. It was good the first time, but I really have no desire to watch it again. And I don't ever foresee me thinking this is a movie that I would want to regularly watch.
Well,
One thing that I would give unabashed credit, it has a great little theme. Like she has a great theme. That little like it's really a cool little theme. It's one of the few, like, because that used to be kind of a hallmark of every superhero movie, is the superhero had their little theme, and it's kind of gone. I mean, the Avengers have theirs, but Wonder Woman's is probably the best going at the moment. I mean, assuming they'll do anything after that last horrible movie. Go ahead, Kale. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I said I couldn't even remember how it ended. I don't even remember like who the main antagonist is.
Well, that's because the antagonist was Hades, which they introduce, like he's been in the whole movie, but then they sort of be like, and by the way, I was Hades all along. And it's like, oh,
Ares.
Whatever. Huh?
Ares.
No, it's Hades.
No, it isn't.
Ares.
Oh, Ares. I just said Hades.
I thought you said Ares.
You said Hades.
I said Hades. I meant to say Ares. We were all right in a way. Everybody was right. It's fine. Kale, what is your number one?
My number one is already been mentioned, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because to me that was the best prequel. Covered where Caesar came from, how the whole ape society started, and it really has, like, I like how they show like how his intelligence grows and the way their social structure grows, and it does lead into the second movie. And I don't know that I've seen the third one or not. I don't think I have. I remember the second one being fairly enjoyable, but yeah, I mean, it's just really thought out, and it's like, okay, it's kind of seated in somewhat realistic things, which makes it more enjoyable for me. Like, I can stretch that far. To see, like, okay, this is imaginative. This isn't just somebody pulling some bullshit out of their ass. This could happen. I mean, the odds of it happening are pretty low, but I mean, it could happen. So yeah, I thought it was a really good movie.
Fair enough. I don't have anything else to say about it. I think it's good. I like all those movies. Jim, your numero uno.
Again, this is probably maybe controversial as a prequel, but I'm going to go with The Batman, the recent Batman movie. Realize it's not necessarily an origin story, but it's set in Batman Year 2, which, where a whole movie ends earlier than most of the other Batman movies. I mean, it's really recent. A lot of people have probably seen it, but as far as Batman movies go, I thought it was really good. It's a little long, but it didn't bother me. The length. I thought it was a pretty good detective movie, even though he didn't really stop any crimes. I really enjoyed the character arc in that it addressed why Batman continues to do what he's doing in Gotham, even though, practically speaking, the crimes that he stops one at a time they seem to be a drop in the bucket. That by the end of the movie, he realizes that he needs to be a symbol of hope, not a symbol of vengeance.
Yeah, I love the movie. I thought it was great. I liked Batman's character arc in that he had one. And I mean, in none of the other Batman, like I've heard some people say that Batman had a character arc in Batman Begins, but it's like, no, his character arc is basically, I wasn't a badass and now I'm a badass. And it's like, that's not really a character arc. That's just I can punch people better now. In the Batman, like he realizes that the tack that has taken for the first 2 years of being Batman isn't working. And that he has to change. He has to be different. And that is maybe more character development than Batman has gotten sometimes even in the comic books over the course of 10 to 15 years. I was very impressed with that.
Or 70 years.
Well, maybe. And so, yeah, no, I thought it was great. It's not a perfect film. Batman isn't the perfect detective in that movie, but also he's only 2 years in. So why would he be? And there are certain people that really seem to be upset that Batman isn't like the most badass person in the whole universe when he's been Batman for like a year and change. And it's like, no, he wouldn't be. Like, he would still make mistakes. Like, he would sometimes, get hit in the face with a bridge after jumping off a building. Like, that would happen because, he's only been doing it a little while. No, I loved it. It's great. I think, you can call it a prequel. Sure. Why not?
I haven't seen the movie. I will probably eventually see it. But what you're telling me is it's kind of, I mean, if you want to put these two together, that it's not too far after where Gotham left off, the series.
Well, I mean, obviously it's very different from Gotham. And I do love a lot of Gotham. There's a lot of Gotham that I think is really cool and interesting and campy and whatever. If you were putting it in those terms, it would be probably like one season after that.
Okay.
Or 1.5 seasons after that. Like, just for time frame purposes.
Sorry, just one more little interjection about it because I don't know that much about the movie, but I do know this. There's a scene in the preview where, instead of like, how they always do, like, who are you? He's like, I'm Batman. But instead of like, who the hell are you or whatever, and he just like pummels that guy to the ground.
So that is in the very beginning of the movie. That is very, very early on.
That he just did that. Like, they didn't tell him to do that. They were just like just drop him or whatever. He did all the extra just to add to the intensity of the scene.
That's true. But again, remember, that's the very beginning of the movie. So that is Batman. So it's sort of like he's learned how to fight. He knows how to create gadgets and all this other stuff. But I don't think he realizes entirely what he is. And the thing that I liked most about the movie is that, people complained it isn't Bruce Wayne. But people always talk about this dichotomy between Batman versus Bruce Wayne. And to me, it's very clear that, Batman is the person he wants to be, and Bruce Wayne is sort of the person that he kind of has to be sometimes. And so to me, it makes sense that he would learn how to be Batman before he learned how to be Bruce Wayne. And so when we are seeing him in this movie, he has not learned how to be Bruce Wayne yet. He has not learned how to be this sort of pretend playboy. He's basically like, fuck everybody, I'm gonna do this. And in the future, I think this, given the results of the movie, we're going to get a sequel where we will probably see him having to learn how to be Bruce Wayne. That is going to be sort of a subsequent lesson that, like, I have to learn how to be the billionaire playboy kind of throw money around guy, even though that's not who I am, because that's harder for him than learning how to be Batman.
Yeah, and I would second that. I am a huge Marvel fan, not a huge DC fan, but I will say, I think the thing that makes Batman and Superman interesting, even though they're super old characters, is that to a large extent, most superheroes have a secret identity. That's their person identity. And for Superman and Batman, it seems like it's the other way around, that their public personal identity is their mask. And right. Superman and Batman is who they really are.
Well, and I think they represent a dichotomy, the dichotomy of their personality, of, this person that they want to be and this person they need to be, and that type of a thing.
They should display that, because that's an interesting storyline. Is this guy, this is who I am, is this run around in the night beating up bad guy, and now I have to learn to pretend to be like a normal person. And then, like, at the same time, whoever the main villain is in the movie, like, show how they've already mastered this, because everybody thinks they're a normal person already. Everybody, they're like, oh, that guy seems normal to me.
I mean, I think probably a very reasonable place for them to go next is the Court of Owls.
And then Tony Stark says, fuck it, I am Iron Man, and he's both things publicly.
Well, but that's because Tony Stark doesn't really have a dichotomy. I don't think because he is who he is. Like, he is very much kind of a, he just is that. He's not an archetype.
I liked the movie. My only complaint was it was fucking dark. Like, I don't mean like tonally. I mean,
you mean literally
physically dark. Like, my eyes were sore at the end trying to figure out what was happening in the shadows, like 90% of the time.
Well, we've been kind of Brandon, I didn't know you'd seen it yet. What were your thoughts on it? Sorry, we kind of
like I said, I liked it. I thought it was good. I had just watched, like, the night before, the first episode of this Prime show called Open Range that had the same thing going on, where it's just...
I'm 6 episodes in.
It was so damn dark all the time that I was like, what? And that was my only real problem with the Batman, was I just, like... I'm sure there's stuff I missed, because it's just like, I have to go turn on a light or stare at the sun or something. What
did you think of the idea of the character arc of Batman? Because that was the thing that struck me the most about the movie, is the idea that Batman is realizing that he started off being one thing and that thing isn't going to work.
Yeah, I thought that was good. And like you were telling me before, I thought the whole him finally being a detective thing was nice. Because that was one of the things that I thought was really cool about the animated series. And they finally did something so he wasn't just, like, face punching for 90 minutes straight, I
mean, he was doing a fair amount of face punching too.
Like, I'm solving problems. Yeah, I guess.
But I'm just saying, he face punched as well.
Yeah.
As detective. He's like, I can detective and face punch a little bit too. Does anybody have any final thoughts on the one and only Batman?
What are the things in his arms? Does anyone know?
Sure.
Nipples.
That's a weird thing.
What did you say? Nipples?
It's like the other Batman movie with George Clooney.
But not in his arms. Why would he have arm nipples?
Why not?
Nipples. It was armor. Did they fit in there? Did they make like a little?
Well, Brandon, what if he had to nurse an armor baby?
Excellent.
Yeah, that just shut you up, didn't it?
We're gonna have to make a movie about an armor baby, whatever the hell that is.
I can probably get you like $10 million from Netflix. All right, so I'm gonna go with my number one. So my number one originally was X-Men First Class, but I, changed it up as we move along. And I am going to go with a movie that the first one is a low budget classic that is one of my favorite horror / sci-fi movies. They did a sequel which I thought was good. And then they came back with a sort of underarm, didn't see it coming prequel called Cube Zero. So Cube is just a basically perfect little low budget sci-fi action movie. The sequel, which is Hypercube, I thought was good, not as good as the first. And then Cube Zero kind of came around and did kind of a below the belt prequel, which is kind of a spoiler. And I apologize for that because it's not set out to be a spoiler, but it is, or it's not set out to be it doesn't start off to be a prequel, but it is. And saying that's a spoiler, so sorry. But it's very good. The Cube movies are really interesting. I think they sort of portray this faceless, and so in the movie, they talk about faceless bureaucracy versus faceless corporations versus faceless government. And I think it all kind of comes to the same thing. It's just there's this thing that controls everything. And the sort of subservience of humans to a sort of unknown other, basically. I don't know. Kale, Jim, did you see Cube?
I have not. My son's been really trying to talk me into watching it with him.
Oh my God, you have to watch Cube. Kale, you talk about Cube, and then I'll talk Jim into watching it.
Well, it's basically a big puzzle, right? And like you're just trying to survive getting through this thing. But it's always changing, and it just gets harder and harder every time. And it's kind of escape roomish, I would say.
Sort of. I mean, what it really is about putting these people with these different personalities into this thing. Again, the first one is a cube. The second one is a hypercube. A hypercube, if you are not aware, is a 4-dimensional cube. You have a square, a cube, and then a hypercube. And obviously, if you have a square that is, let's say, 2 by 2 or 2 by 2, it will have 4 rooms. But if all of a sudden you turn it into a cube, now it is, 8 rooms. And if you turn it into a hypercube, it increases exponentially. And I was hoping Brandon would say some things about the movie too, but he has stepped away.
I haven't seen it in forever, but yeah, I remember liking it.
It's just this idea of these personalities that are all very averse to one another, and kind of having to interact. And everybody, all the people in the cube are different. And I think the experiment is as much about their interactions as it is about the cube itself. And it's just a great sci-fi movie.
Do you guys know what platform it's on right now?
I will look.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix.
Netflix doesn't have any spare money right now.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why they're upping everybody's fees next month. Oh.
Okay, Cube, it looks like is available on. No, that's not right. There's some game show called Cube. That's not what I'm talking about.
Got to be DVD or Blu-ray for sure.
That's all right. I can look at it myself.
It looks like it might not be free. I swear these things are so frustrating. Just go to your local half price bookstore, whatever. It's probably going to be on offer as a markdown DVD or something. It is available for several places free with ads. So Roku, Vudu, Tubi, is that Redbox, Pluto, Plex, Canopy, and free.
What about Cube Zero?
Free Amazon channel. So it's free. It's free for several places with ads, but yeah. Okay. And then Cube Zero, I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. But
I think Sauron is sneaking up on you, Cal.
Cal, don't look behind you.
On you.
And maybe Brandon will come back and talk about Cube. But if not, that's fine.
While we're waiting for Brandon, I'm gonna talk about Sauron just for a second, just because I can. Oh, here's back.
Brandon has mastered the technique of walking away exactly when I ask him to talk about something.
You went too long and the dog had to go out.
So Brandon, Cube, thoughts?
Cube is excellent. I love that movie. I never actually saw the third one, so I can't speak to the prequel.
Did you watch? You watched the second one though, didn't you? Didn't you watch Hypercube?
Yeah, I watched the second one. I like the second one too. I'm not sure I knew there was a third one, but the first one is really, really good.
Now, would you say that the movie is more about the cube or more about the people in the cube?
Oh, it's the people inside.
Right. It reminds me sort of, Brandon, talk about Cube for a minute, because there's I want to make a reference and I have to look it up. So
well, there's that part, what is it? The very first Resident Evil or second one or something like that, where they do like the laser light thing that slices the guy and all that.
That's the first one.
There's like a bunch of traps in the cube, which is really cool. But each room is just this kind of like faceless backlit wall. And they all have to, they kind of have to cooperate, but they start not trusting each other and thinking like someone's got, pull on the inside, or they helped put them there or something like that. So they start not trusting each other, and one guy turns out to be kind of a bad guy, not because he was planted, but just because he kind of goes a little nuts being trapped in there. And, I don't know.
By the way, the episode I was trying to think of is the Twilight Zone episode 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, which I am absolutely certain the people that made Cube watched multiple times. And if you've not seen that, I would highly recommend that. By the way, just watch all the Twilight Zone. Because if you want to understand horror for the next 6 decades, if you watch every single Twilight Zone episode, you will find an example of all of those. It is an incredible thing that they did.
You know what it reminds me of too? And it's weird because I don't know that I can even articulate any connection, but it reminds me of the city,
Dark City.
One with, yeah. Like, the same people that made the Cube could have made the Space City.
Spoiler alert for Dark City, by the way.
Well, there's even a part where they kind of, see the outside of the Cube, and, I mean, it's enormous and kind of...
No, they see the outside of the city. They never see the outside of the Cube.
Wasn't there a part where the guy, the room aligns and he, sees the edge?
No, he sees. So, well, we're spoiling. Who cares? Yes, one of the characters sees the outside of the cube, but you don't see what he sees. Yeah. All as you see is that he sees it. Which gives, I swear, Cube Zero is such a great movie because it really gives a very kind of cyclic nature to all 3 movies. It's why I was always glad they never made another Cube movie. I thought those 3 movies work really well together. They're very low budget, but they work very well. They're very well written, and they're very well acted. And
we could make a list of small, indie, low budget movies, especially in the horror genre, but a lot of places where they have made really good, captivating movies that almost nobody saw. I would say Cube is one of them.
Mean Guns.
Mean Guns is one of them.
Mean Guns.
I would say maybe the entire Phantasm series is one of my all-time favorites.
So I still haven't watched. We're getting afield, but it's fine. I still haven't watched the last Phantasm movie.
Yeah, I haven't yet either.
It's I've got it. It's on my shelf, and I'm just I don't know. I don't want that journey to be over, I guess.
So I don't know this, but I suspect that the first Phantasm movie is responsible for a lot of the nightmares from when I was a child.
I remember there was a movie called Transylvania Twist, which is sort of a spoof movie. And it shows it's like vampires versus, I don't know, it's kind of a dumb spoof movie. But in one of the parts, they get Angus Scrim from the Phantasm movies to throw a ball. As in he's like a pitcher and he throws a ball and somebody hits it with a bat. It's rather humorous. Very humorous.
Is it silver?
I believe it is. They also have a vampire kill like Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface, I think.
It would have been almost funnier if he had been the umpire and he could have yelled, "Ball!"
I think you're smarter than the writers of that movie. By the way, you know what I almost forgot about? And we wrote this down. Worst. We were going to do one worst prequel. So getting serious again, very serious. What are your guys' worst prequels? What's the worst one you came across?
I did that. Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, okay.
I also did that. The Hobbit, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
The worst.
Oh, I thought we were talking about our bet. It's fine. Okay.
And the next one is the worst, and the third one is the worstest.
Yeah, what was the worst prequel you came across?
You know, I didn't even think about that, but since Brandon brought it up earlier, Terminator 2 really is the Terminator movie. So I'm going to say that the original Terminator is probably the worst prequel, if you're going to count that as a prequel.
That's terrible, what you just said.
Because the second movie just blows that out of the water. It does.
Yeah, the first movie.
It's not a prequel by definition, but it isn't a bad prequel, though. If it was counted that way, it isn't a bad one. It's just more dated.
Things are
to
going
Kale.
entirely off the chain right now.
According
I'm
to
gonna give-
Kale,
I'm going
You
to
said
give
these rules didn't
I don't really
really
like things on the chain.
things have to be on the chain, because if they're not on the chain, they're off the chain.
Right.
And then who knows where
Well,
Teacup.
I didn't come up with the worst. You
Anarchy.
caught me on.
My worst one was the recently released Leatherface, the prequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. No, it's a sequel. Well, son of a bitch. Which one? Hold on. No, the 2017 prequel.
Some
yeah.
people get confused about prequels and sequels.
Look, motherfucker. No, so it's not the new Leatherface. The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is terrible. But there was a prequel released in 2017, which is absolutely awful. And there's like this pretty boy and this sort of heavyset, younger guy who has a hard time talking. And it's like, oh, but actually the guy you don't think of as Leatherface because reasons. And it is absolutely abysmal. I love the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe more than any horror movie I've ever seen. And every single sequel is just disappointing. And that one was the most disappointing. There's actually 2 prequels in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, because Platinum Dunes, which is Michael Bay's production company, did a prequel to their reboot, because these are words we have to fucking use now. And it was also bad, but not worse than the 2017 prequel to the original 1972 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There you go. 7? I can't remember.
All right.
Any thoughts on Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels or reboots?
Just where he goes like this. It's the only part I really remember.
Fair enough. All right. On top of that, a mess of us getting things mixed up. I want to thank everybody. Actually, any final thoughts? Brandon, do you have any final thoughts on prequels?
Not really. They might not be worth doing. We don't really need an origin story for almost anything.
On top of that, just to piggyback on that, I think of like The Incredible Hulk, which is a movie that I like, even though a lot of people don't. And the sort of more recent Spider-Man movies, they just eschewed the origin. They were just like, it. Let's move on. And I thought that was such a great decision.
Well, that was my only problem when you were saying that Batman was a prequel. Is like every Batman movie is his origin story. It's just like, oh my god.
But you don't get his origin story. But they don't do.
Yeah.
That was the greatest. They didn't do his origin story. That was what I loved about it. Like, I don't want to see Thomas and Martha shot in an alley again.
I'm going to shoot him the next time I see him.
Stop this Martha on Thomas violence.
I'm going to be the origin of Batman.
Why do you even come to the alley? Jesus Christ. They call it Crime Alley. Why would you walk down here with your child and no protection?
Some air.
Go to the street. Yeah, crazy. Anyway.
I'll ventilate you.
Kale, thoughts on prequels?
Watch movies. I don't care.
Strong thoughts. Jim, final thoughts on prequels?
Watch Prometheus. Everything else you can probably forget about.
My final thought is you probably don't need to watch Prometheus, but it's all right.
Honestly, the Planet of the Apes movies, the new ones, I would probably watch those. If I was going to suggest any of them, watch those.
Although in strict terms, not really prequels, but it's fine. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and have a good drink. Have a good night.
Worried, are you, that the critics are not going to like this new movie?
Oh, I'm not worried at all. They haven't liked any of them, really.